Good morning and welcome to day 2 here at Productronica. I'm delighted to be joined by Ajit Manocha, who's the president of SEMI. Welcome, Ajit.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Now, Ajit, I did an interview a couple of months ago now with Ross Bernstein from Indium Corporation. And he was telling me that one of the more exciting things coming down the pipe was heterogeneous integration. I hadn't a clue what that was, and it piqued my interest. And I believe that you are heavily involved in that area. So perhaps you can enlighten me and explain to me and our viewers, of course, what heterogeneous integration is.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I will. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I come from the silicon semiconductor industry, almost 4 decades in that industry, and our industry was led by a roadmap called ITRS. And that was mainly driven by the companies like Intel and so on, basically Moore's Law and so on. And somehow that roadmap process was dropped 4 or 5 years ago, and industry was kind of lost without the roadmap. And thanks to the multiple volunteers, they actually started developing the front-end roadmap and the back-end roadmap, and there's so many innovations right now. We talk about from chip scaling to system scaling. And the heterogeneous integration is on the heart of all those new innovations.
Right.
We're talking about from automotive electronics to 5G to AI to future of computing, or high performance computing and so on.
Right.
So I think this the volunteers, thousands of volunteers are working together to really look at how the new innovations can be brought to reality. Right. And the heterogeneous integration is really in the heart of all that process.
So is it, materials compatibility to check?
It's more than that. It's basically from design to systems all the way, from materials, equipment, processes.
Right.
I mean, you name it. This is much complex. Heterogeneous integration roadmaps are much more complex, looking at the entire electronic supply chain. From, like I said, from design to systems.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's really much more complex. And what I like about this one is that, in our industry, we always come with multiple solutions for a problem. But the road mapping process, it helps to see what will be the best path forward so that the decision makers can get a good guidance on where to invest.
Yes.
And actually shorten the time to market.
Yes.
So that's really the beauty of the roadmap.
Yes.
So I really feel that industry is already welcoming we released the HIE roadmap. Now, SEMI has been somewhat in the background in the previous roadmap process, but given that the ITRS was dropped and the industry was a bit lost, so when I joined SEMI 2.5 years ago, and I met the volunteers, I said, it is my responsibility on behalf of SEMI that I will support you as a sponsor, right, to bring the roadmap to the industry so we can get you the industry validation of the roadmap. So that's the role that I started playing as a head and president and CEO of SEMI, as well as basically engineer at heart. So
you facilitated these meetings, made sure that there was a structure set up and
actually, I will not take that much credit for all that. Yes, we facilitate the meetings. We offer them our platform. We have a global platform. We actually offer them the space and the support sponsorship to run the meeting. But these volunteers already have the support structure of people from the entire supply chain. Yeah. From, like I said, all the way from design to systems.
Right.
So they bring all the people together, and SEMI provides them the support, whatever the support they need. We actually provide more sponsorship to make this happen. Okay. And it costs money to SEMI, but SEMI feels this investment is the right thing to bring value to the industry.
Okay. So the road mapping system almost, in one way, as I said before, it helps to give it some structure, but that then can lead forward into, eventually, into the standards creations.
Yeah, actually, you're right. So before I come to the standards, I think there are many other benefits which people don't understand or appreciate. I mean, the governments, national governments, they actually value these roadmaps to see how they can help streamline the policies to increase the production of electronics.
Right.
Electronics are changing our lives.
Yes.
I mean, they're actually improving the standard of living for all of us, as well as it's also helping the economy of the countries. So this is really becomes a very useful product for governments, for the decision makers in the industry, and also for the academicians to see what research area they need to focus on,
right.
To look 20-30 years ahead.
Right.
So now we talked about standards. SEMI, which is an industry association, and we support the electronic manufacturing and design supply chain, again from materials to equipment, to the wafer fabs, foundries, to the fabless companies, all the way systems, design houses, applications, you name it. With the whole electronic supply chain, which is we call roughly $2 trillion supply chain that SEMI supports. And if you look at SEMI and Europa here, we have a pavilion for smart transportation, smart medtech, smart manufacturing. So there are people from all phases of the industries here. And SEMI's foundation was based on standards, so that we do not have niche equipment for our industry. Standards helped us to provide multiple companies making equipments conforming to those standards to promote competition. And that was a really great thing. So SEMI's foundation standards, actually we rolled out the standard number 1000 3-4 months ago, and that's on the energetic materials, which really is a foundation for the future of the industry from the environmental health and safety point of view, as well as the power consumption point of view. Okay.
Well, let's take a closer look though at SexGen, and in particular the SMT EMS side of that component. What have you done recently to try and bring that up to speed to deal with the modern changes happening in the factory floor?
That's a great question, Trevor. I mean, I tell you, this is really very close to my heart, because I was in the wafer fabs for all my life, and our M2M standards, machine-to-machine communication standards, were really the key for us to really create more automation in the front end.
Right. And
then subsequently, that was taken by the back end and also for the PCB. So then the surface mount SMT lines, and SEMI is actually has created standards called SMT ELS. Okay. And SMT ELS compliance is being looked at as the way forward for the companies which are not the typical wafer fab companies, surface mount type companies.
Right.
So this has become a big deal. The best way I describe the SMT ELS standards is the multiple standards in that. This is just a forum. Is that this really offers a common language for different vendors' machines to talk to the assembly line or the manufacturing line.
Correct.
And that's really very good. And actually the companies like Siemens and Jabil, Flex, they all are actually saying we need our manufacturing assembly lines to be compliant with SMT ELS standards. Right. So this is really where the role SEMI is playing a big time.
Yeah, I think the big thing about standards at that level, whether it's the SMT ELS or CFX or others, is it creates a base that when vendors sell equipment, they're not having to write lines of code all the time to make them integrate. They'll plug and play essentially.
That's correct. That's a well put. Yes. Yeah. So it's a plug and play. It becomes plug and play. I think. Right. I mean, this is really whenever it comes to the manufacturing lines, we do not want complexity. It's already everything is so complex. Yes. If you can simplify by the standards and streamline it, so that the vendors, the customers have choices of vendor A versus B versus C. Right. And because in everything in the end is the cost. You know. Yeah. So we need to bring the cost down so that we can bring the best of the best products to the consumers and to improve their standards of living.
Great. Well, it's great to see that you're continuing to develop that side of your standard business, and I want to thank you for telling us a bit more about it today.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
For joining us. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking to Carlos Bouras from Nordson Select.
Since 1994, HIE has solved the challenges of automated optical inspection with a full line of 2D AOI and 3D AOI, SBI and AXI systems, and the first self-programming and self-tuning software. HIE has become a respected leader in the Smart Factory Industry 4.0 and M2M communication revolution.
Welcome back. My next guest this morning is Carlos Bouras from Nordson Select. Welcome, Carlos. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Yeah. Nice seeing you again.
So, bring us up to date with your Integra system. You've made a few updates to it recently. Tell us what's been happening there.
Yeah, so we have, on this show, we have two main innovations that we're very proud of. Mm-hmm. One of them is our nozzle tinning system. Mm-hmm. Nozzles degrade over time. Yep. And you have to redress them to get rid of the dross that builds on them. Mm-hmm. They build dry spots. Yep. Our system is different in that it uses a gel that gets dispensed inside the nozzle, and then you turn the pump again. The gel with the flux flows around the nozzle, completely cleaning it, and then the solder starts flowing again. I
see. So the gel actually pumps out around the nozzle?
Inside the nozzle.
Inside the nozzle.
And then it comes out with the solder, dresses the nozzle around, and okay. It cleans it off completely.
Okay. Does that extend the life of the nozzles?
Well, it extends the viability of using the nozzle, so you don't have to stop the machine to dress it. It does it automatically. Yeah. The other thing that's very neat about the system is that you have fume extraction. So it's done in a service station where all the fumes are extracted and goes up to the extraction system, avoiding contamination of any of the machine with the flux, which is important.
Right, and that's quite important. So fume extraction has been added to the new systems. What sort of systems do you have? You start from benchtop small systems. Give us a description of some of the main configurations that you use.
Sure. We don't have a benchtop, but our entry-level unit is a very compact 300 millimeter by 300 board, all in one, hand load. Very good for a lab or for a university that is doing studies that are trying to get into the selective soldering world. Right. And at the other extreme, we have a 6-spot inline machine that uses parallel processing for high volume.
Right. So, as a technology, selective soldering is still growing, I believe. What's driving that?
It is. It continues to replace hand soldering for consistency and quality. It also is replacing wave soldering for a number of reasons, but the major one is wave soldering is very expensive to run. Right. You generate a lot of draws. You have big expenses, energy-wise and the like. With selective soldering, you go away from a lot of that. So people are starting to replace their wave soldering machines that way.
Yeah, and I guess the automation is increasing the reliability of the solder joints and that sort of thing as well. Yeah. So obviously we're in a world where everything has to have data coming off of it. How do you extract data from this process and provide that to the MES system?
Sure. So all of our systems are logging everything that's capturable, including the state of the machine. But if you select the option of having a barcode reader, for example, we can capture the serial number of the board, the model, etc., store that, and where it is in the process, what has been done to the board, and if there's any failures detected, logs that in. And it's up to the MES system on the factory to request the data, but it's all available, and it's user selectable.
Good. And I believe you're CFX compliant?
Correct. We can provide a CFX compliant file.
Great. Okay. One of the things that obviously with selective soldering systems is changing the pot system. Is that a fairly easy process with yours?
To exchange the pot itself?
Yes.
Yes, it's very easy to clean a pot, but if you wanted to extract the pot, we have models where we have a cart that goes in that preheats the pot that you want to put in, and you can swap. You can insert the cart, take one of the pots out and then exchange it and put the new one that's already below melting point but close. So a lot of the time that it takes to ramp up is absorbed by the cart, and then you can get running pretty fast.
Get one in. Okay. Okay. Good. Great. Well, it's great to obviously hear that the things are developing with the your selective systems. I want to thank you for coming in today.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So that brings us to the end of Wednesday's programming here at Productronica. A couple of panel discussions coming up later this morning. One on AI, which will be very interesting. But for now, this is Trevor Galbraith saying thank you for joining us.